Hey, it's Liza Lawrence here with Wonders and Miracles podcast. This is my mini message, episode 149. Can suffering be a miracle? What is the purpose of suffering? Is there value in it? So I can honestly say I have never met a person who liked suffering. Never met someone that was like, oh, I just love to suffer and I love this experience. However, I have met a lot of people, including myself, who are grateful for their suffering. How is this possible? So, after listening to both Alyssa and DC Winslow's stories of loss and grief and miracles and finding new love, they were on my podcast for the last 2 weeks. I've been thinking a lot about the purpose of sorrow, loss, pain, suffering, struggle. I've really been reflecting on my own experiences in my life that have included grief, suffering, struggle, and healing. It seems like no human on earth can escape some type of suffering or pain. I also want to think about just because one person's experience seems more extreme than another's does not discount or invalidate your own painful experiences and losses. So, is there purpose in suffering? I actually believe that there is. And I believe that this is one of the reasons that we wanted to come to this planet and play so that we could experience opposition in all things. I believe that we existed before we lived here, and we knew that there was no chance of growth without direct experience for ourselves, what it felt like to struggle, to suffer, to feel pain. When we existed in perfect love, which is God, how could we know these things without having the direct experience? So I believe the purpose of pain is just experience for one part. But could there be other purposes to pain? Kahlil Gibran said, out of suffering have emerged the strongest souls. The most massive characters are seared with scars. There are great things that we can learn and that we can become through the struggle of life. We can gain deep wisdom as we overcome deep grief and loss. And honestly, there might not have been any other way for us to do that type of growing and learning and strengthening that we needed to become our full potential as souls and spiritual beings. It is interesting, the gospel of Jesus Christ invites us to become something different than we currently are, to grow, to change, to become Christ-like. And I think this process is quite miraculous. It's like a small seed pushing through the earth to become a mighty tree. That seed has to struggle through the soil to come up. Our souls push through the heaviness of this life experience so that we can become glorious. In Romans chapter 8, verse 18, for I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. Could it be that the suffering is to teach us how strong we actually are, to reveal to ourselves our resilience, our strength, our reliance on God, our abilities to grow? Because sometimes that's what suffering does if we choose to allow it to help us grow. We have to choose that, though. Sometimes suffering breaks people. Honestly, I think that pain is inevitable in this life. However, I do believe that how we look at pain and how we look at suffering and how we look at life can make a big difference in how we experience pain and suffering. I've seen for myself and others that as long as we fight with our suffering and we're mad about it, and we believe that it shouldn't be the way it is, then we tend to feel more victimized by life. But if we recognize and accept that suffering potentially is a great opportunity for wisdom and growth and healing, then it can soften the pain a little bit. I do coach people through the healing process, and I do believe we still need to grieve our losses and process our experiences of trauma and suffering. But if we accept that suffering is part of this life, that suffering is also part of growth, then we won't be in so much inner turmoil with what is or what was. It will help us move through it faster with more compassion and more peace, which I believe is also quite miraculous. I just want to share a quick experience, not from my own trauma, but an interesting sort of twist on this. Just a few weeks ago, I really had a beautiful experience while I was meditating that helped me make peace with this inevitable suffering of life and the perceived absence of God's grace and love, which I think sometimes is quite painful for us. Where is God? Where's his love? I want to feel that again because it's so hard down here. If you're feeling that, I get you. I felt that too. So one day I was meditating on this question of why is it that if we are supposedly swimming in God's love, which I do believe we are swimming in the essence of God's love, why is it that we can't feel it all the time? And why is it that we can't access it all the time? Why is it that life has to feel so painful sometimes? And while I was pondering this question, it was as though heaven opened to me. And I could see all of my heavenly friends waving at me. It still makes me kind of emotional. And I could tell they were cheering for me. I could feel their love. What was interesting, and I'm demonstrating this right now because what was interesting was I had this deep longing, and it was actually a little bit painful to know how much I missed them and how much I loved them. Also knowing at the same time that they were very aware of my experiences and of me. And I loved them for that. And I was grateful for that. And I think sometimes our suffering comes from the mere absence of that love and that heavenly connection. And then it closed. And I was taught that if you had access to this divine love constantly and all the time, you would not be able to fulfill your growth and your purpose on this earth. You wouldn't be present in the moment doing what you came here to do. You would be too distracted and be longing for being in heaven all the time. And it would almost make this life unbearable. I came to grow. You came to grow. And the Spirit in that moment taught me, enjoy your time while you have it here on earth. Enjoy the experiences, the hard and the good. Fully embrace all the things because that's why you're there. That's your purpose right now. And it was a beautiful experience and somewhat painful, I'll be honest. So if you are currently struggling in life and suffering with the inevitable pain of this earth experience, I see you. I think we all know what that feels like to some degree. But it helps me to remember that when I am suffering, it often is an indicator that I'm growing. And growing pains are important for our learning, for our purpose in being here, even just for our raw experience. And maybe the gift that heaven is giving us is the gift of realizing for ourselves and revealing to ourselves how resilient and strong we actually are as we overcome our tribulations, our struggles, our pain. And that process can be incredibly miraculous. And I hope if we can see suffering in a different way, that it's not that something has gone wrong, but that there is deep purpose in it, then hopefully we can make peace sooner with it. And that through these painful experiences, we are becoming who we actually came here to be. And I know this topic feels kind of heavy, but I can honestly say I am so grateful for the deep suffering and painful experiences that I have had in my life, because those have been the catalysts that have invited me to become a better self, to grow, to dig deeper, to connect deeper with my spiritual self and with God. And I wouldn't change that. And to me, that's miraculous. But hang in through the struggle. You're amazing. And I do believe God helps us through it all. So have a great week. We'll talk to you next week.